6 years old, I faced rejection for the first time. It was a simple classroom exercise that turned into a public roast that made me feel embarrassed and vulnerable. But little did I know that would shape my relationship with rejection for years to come.
And now it's time to face rejection head on. So I need to go to the place where I faced rejection most. This place has some serious memories that have haunted me for my entire life. And I'm sure that you've all faced rejection at some point in your life, but in this video, I can promise you that if I'm going to take you to the darkest part of my rejection, I won't end this video until we figure out exactly how you face your rejection too.
For those of you who are watching these videos for the first time, my name's Jake, and I've been rejected for startup funding 50 times. Well, actually 52 times to be exact. And I wanted to make this video to show you what it's like getting through the process of resilience and especially rejection. This honestly spans over decades, from when I was a kid and my goal was to conquer the world, and now I'm an adult who's still trying to do the same thing, and how hard it actually is. And this story starts decades ago when I was a kid, and now all the way to I'm an adult as an entrepreneur. There's 3 ways that rejection has completely shaped the way I live life, but before we dive into that, I want to start with the why I'm getting rejected in the first place. My company, Rejection. My mom has really bad osteoarthritis, and I was watching her taking pills before she went to physical therapy just to help with her pain. And I thought to myself, there has to be a better way of doing this without having to take these pills. And I studied chemistry and biology in college, and I remember that I also played college soccer, so I used muscle stimulation all the time. And I thought, what better way of allowing her to be mobile while also helping her relieve her pain by combining them together? And that's what Lectra is. And that's the company I've been working on now for the last 4 years, or 1,460 days. And Lectra's more than a company. It's a way of revolutionizing the way that people recover and are able to live their lives. Because a lot of people can't even get through day-to-day activities without living through pain. Imagine that every single day. And that's the mission I'm here to solve. And to solve any big mission, you gotta get a lot of no's in the process. And when you're doing something like this, it takes a ton of learning, honestly, a lifetime of living. And people say that life is so short, but it's the longest thing that we do in our lives. And what I've been learning through this process is life is all about learning, and it takes an entire lifetime to figure out. But I want to get into the first lesson that I've learned about rejection and how it's completely shaped the way that I live my life. And that comes from startup rejections for Lectra. I've had so many people, 52 people exactly, to tell me no, that this isn't the right time or this isn't a good fit. And it's really easy to let yourself get down like that. I was down for a really long time, and honestly, I still am, because we're in the process of figuring everything out. But we've had tons of success across the way. But I think when you're talking about rejection, it only makes sense to talk about some of the failures. And turning this vision into reality has taken all of the blood, sweat, and tears that I have, and it's honestly just the start. I told myself 3 years ago that I would start waking up at 5:30 every single day to get the most amount of time to be able to build this company. And I thought it was going to be a walk in the park, and I can promise you that for the experiences you're about to hear, it has been anything but that. I want to get into some of these rejections here before we talk about some of the biggest stories and takeaways that I've learned from this process and how it's honestly made me stronger. So the first one came from a venture capital firm, and I can say this off my head because they're all ingrained inside of my head in a way that's like almost kind of dumb every single time you have these conversations. But the first one was from the New York Angels, and they said, "Hi Jack, my name's Jake." They didn't even get my name right or bother to try. But they said, "We appreciate the time that you took to submit your application to the New York Angels, and we appreciate every single step of the way that you had worked on. We like the idea and we like what you're working on, but right now, unfortunately, it's just too early for us to make an investment with our firm." And then they offered me some options for potential subsidiaries for funding, which we had already tried, and it wasn't the worst rejection I've ever had, but it was the first one, so it hurt a lot. This next one came from an investment firm out of Philly, and they said, "Hi Jake, our team is disgusted, and it just seems like you're a little bit too early for a cash investment from our team." This one wasn't horrible though, because they said at the end of it, "We really do like what you're working on, and when you get a little bit farther and secure a little bit more funding down the road, come back to us and we'll reconsider an investment." So that one honestly felt like a win, because it may seem like a little win, but little by little, a little becomes a lot. The third one didn't respond to me for like 4 weeks, so I had sent them a text message once every week just to make sure they knew I still existed. And he finally texted me back, and he's like, "Hey Jake, I'm sorry, I've been busy. It's been completely hectic over here." You get that text so much. And it was 4 weeks. But he was like, "Yeah, we just think that right now it's not a good fit for our investment portfolio." And I remember asking why, and he's like, "Oh, I mean, you guys are doing everything right. It's just like right now we're a little bit strapped on where we're going to deploy the cash." And I remember them posting an email a couple days, or it was a LinkedIn post a couple days later, that they had just closed the largest fund ever of $40 million. So that one definitely hurt a little bit too. But you gotta keep working and keep learning, because rejections are an easy way to let people determine how you're going to live your life, And I've always thought that life's a roller coaster. Ups and downs, twists and turns, and unexpected moments that are gonna take your breath away. But when you're driving throughout life, physically and metaphorically right now, you're gonna go through a lot of shit and a lot of problems. And there's gonna be a lot of twists and turns. And like I just had right there, a bend in the road's not the end of the road unless you fail to make the turn. Oh man. So it's just a live and a learn process of doing anything. That's just how life goes. But we have plenty more rejections to talk about here. The fourth one started off by them saying, thank you for submitting and taking all of your time to submit to our angel group. We appreciate the time you put forth and we understand how hard it is for companies who are raising capital, especially in the times that we're in. We believe that currently your company has insufficient traction to be recommended by us and the individuals at our angel firm. So most of these places I'm not even getting in to have the opportunity to pitch. They're kind of just like slamming the door in my face via email. And that's what happens. You're almost like a door-to-door salesman as you're pitching your company. And there's gonna be a ton of times where it's gonna seem like it's really easy to give up. Like there's a ton of times like I felt that my company wasn't a good enough idea or I wasn't a good enough entrepreneur or founder to be able to get through the process of raising any money. And it's really trying and it's really mentally draining because sometimes imposter syndrome almost seems to get the best of you where it's like, wow, maybe I'm just not good enough to be doing what I'm trying to be doing. And then you just realize that everything in life is a process and it's a ton of steps to be able to learn that process. The fifth one, hi Jake, I appreciate you sending over your deck and I actually sent it to our chairman as well and we both reviewed it. But right now we feel like you guys are a little bit too early to receive a cash investment from our angel fund. We do like the concept, so down the road, if you guys get farther along, we'd definitely be interested in considering sitting down and having another conversation, which is good. When you're getting that type of feedback from people, they're saying like, it's not good right now, but the door is still gonna be open in the future. That's not a no. And that's the way that you wanna look at the positive outlook in all this. And number 6, they said, thank you for applying to our venture organization. A lot of them seem pretty copy and paste, but they said again, we think you're too early right now for a cash investment from us. We typically invest in businesses that are already launched in the marketplace, have traction, are generating revenue. But for my company specifically, it's tough because we're a medical device company. So it's a process to be able to get it approved, to be able to even sell on the marketplace. And number 7 was a cold LinkedIn reach out I did. And he said, hey Jake, thanks for reaching out and sending this over to me, but I just don't have enough expertise to be able to fully address the problem and see if it's a good fit for me. And I remember I reached out a couple extra times and I never heard back from him. So I responded and I was like, oh, well, thank you very much for the time. I appreciate it. Is there any way that you could send it to anybody else that you would know in your network that might be a good fit to have a conversation with? And he literally was just like, nah, I'm sorry, we don't do healthcare investments. And I was like, okay, well, have a great day. And I would say the rejection that hurt the most is the one I just had currently. Like literally last week, I got on with this investor and the entire time that we had the meeting, he seemed completely disinterested. He wasn't asking me any questions. I felt like I was facilitating the conversation. And literally, I had to say, hey, are you listening at one point because he was looking down at his phone. And by the end of the conversation, I just said, hey, what are your thoughts on this? Is somebody making you be here right now? What do you think of the position we're at? And he's like, honestly, I just don't think it's a good fit. And when I explained it, I asked him, do you understand the technologies or any questions you have? And he's like, yeah, I don't really know. After I'd already explained it, which just showed he really wasn't even listening at all. And I have to admit, the rejection stung a lot, and it definitely is a dampener on your ego as well. But you can either use it to define you or to control you. So I'm letting it define me in the sense of fixing everything that's wrong with the pitch every single time. Clean slate every single time I have a conversation with a new person, fix it, and then from there, you understand the problems that we just used to raise $25,000 and now $250,000. And most people just let it control them. So they give up, they think that they're not good enough, imposter syndrome kicks in, this and that. And you just can't let that be a controlling part of your life to let it keep you from doing what you want to do and what you want to go after. And I've had 1,460 days of rejection, so all these rejections that you just heard here were just the start. And if you think it was bad now, wait till what you hear next, because the rejections just get crazier and crazier and the stage just gets bigger and bigger.
Parking lot entrance.
Thanks.
So the bathrooms are down there at the very end to the left.
Okay, awesome.
All right.
This takes us into the next phase of rejection, which has been so intense sometimes that it's really almost broken me to the point where I was going to give up. I got selected for 10 different national level pitch competitions across the United States. And there's some pretty interesting things that happened at all of them, to say the least. These all happened when I was in college, and I was waking up at 5 a.m. every single day, weeks before starting any of these competitions, because I wanted to make sure I put myself in the best position to win. And some of them were giving out cash prizes as high as $400,000 to college students, which is life-changing. And I think it would be easiest to understand these if I broke down all of them. So the first one was the Westchester Business Idea Competition. I remember I was a sophomore in college. I just started the company, and it was my first pitch competition ever. I was stoked because I ended up being in the finals. Hearing my name get called as the winner and winning $5,000, I thought it was my ticket out, and I was going to start moving out, dropping out of college, and this is going to be everything that I had wanted from the beginning. Which got us to the point where we made our very first prototype. It paid for a trip down to Houston where I could test everything out, but started to get a little bit rocky from there. This taught me that no matter how high you are, on every single mountain you climb, you always end up having to walk back down. Because I was selected as a finalist for the Baylor New Venture Competition, which was our second national finalist. So we got into Baylor, and I remember we got into Waco, Texas. We'd flown down, my co-founder and I, and we filmed the entire process. I was so excited, I was ready to go. I was studying up all of our material, I was pitching, and then we get into the competition, and there's 150 people in the audience. So we pitch, they start giving us feedback, and at the end, we start getting things about insurance, and this woman was asking us question after question, and we were answering it without any unwavering. Everything was perfect, but for some reason, she woke up and chose violence that day. She was telling us all these insurance codes that we didn't have, and all these things that we weren't gonna be covered under, which later we found out that we were, and she was talking about the wrong thing. But she was so confident in what she was saying that was still wrong, that everybody else in the room believed it as well. So, for the grand scheme of the pitch competition, the winner got $50,000, and we didn't come in first, second, third, fourth, or fifth place, so we didn't walk away with any money from that. But there was a 60-second pitch slam, which we absolutely killed because we knew what we were capable of, and there was nobody that was going to tear us down from there because we didn't let our fear of failure outweigh the desire to succeed there, which was why we ended up walking away with $2,500 from that competition. So that was super cool. We fought resilience, we fought against rejection directly, and came out. I consider this a win. Walking out with any money is a win. In this competition, they had people from the Forbes 30 under 30. We competed with a team that just got acquired for millions and millions of dollars, and we ended up beating them. So we didn't let that one person's rejection define where we were gonna go next. The third one was at the exact same time, actually. We had to split our team up. This is where the rejection started to get real, because this was the Texas Christian University Values and Ventures Competition. I had two people from my team pitching for us, but we were pitching directly at Baylor. And at the time, they went and pitched to a room of around 50 people. There was a ton of people there, and there was a bunch of other competitors there as well. And when they pitched, apparently people started poking holes in what they were saying. They were asking questions that they didn't know the answer to. And I remember them calling me and saying that they were really dejected and they felt down because they were questions they knew that they would answer, but it was the way that these people were wording them which made them slip up a little bit. And I think that that was the first time that they faced rejection because they were feeling down about it and they knew that they could have done better. But my response to that was I think they did an absolutely great job. They were grinding with me for this competition. We were all getting up at 5 a.m. together and going to study for hours and hours every single day. And rejection didn't stop them because now one of the individuals is still on my team and the other one is a part of another startup as well. So they didn't let it define them either. But next competition was probably the biggest heartbreaker yet, and it still was a win. This was Apache State Startup Challenge. So we ended up being a finalist here out of 64 different teams across the entire state of Pennsylvania. And it was the start of what I call second place death. We got second place in this one as well, and we lost to a company that was making fishing lures. And we pitched live on television, so it was on the news. If you look this up online, I'll put a link down below, you guys can see it as well. But we saw this, that we had got second place, and I remember being on television and being so upset and so downcast from this. And I remember taking this giant $5,000 check that I had got from coming in second place and being upset about it. And then I thought more about it to myself. I was like, why are you upset about it? You just got $5,000. And I think of myself and where I hold myself to a standard where it's like, I could have gotten $10,000 there. But if you think too much about the has-beens and the coulda, shoulda, wouldas, you're never gonna be able to figure out about what I'm gonna do next and how I'm gonna go over that next hurdle and accomplish what I'm going after. Which is why this one, I say, helped me handle rejection more than anything else probably in my entire life. Because I was on TV and they were asking me questions live on television. I remember her saying like, how would somebody use this for X, Y, and Z? And I answered the question perfectly. And afterwards, when I had talked to the judges, they had said that you were too far along for us to give you the money is what they told me. And that's kind of where I was like, okay, this is ridiculous. I want nothing to do with this anymore. I don't want to be a part of this. Like, I'm done, this is too much. And then sat down and I thought about it more, and it's like, it's a process. Everything you do is a process. And this is just streamlining the process. So it's lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3, lesson 4. I don't think about the money we got. I don't think about the competitions. I just think about the process of how to learn, how to deal with rejection, how to fix it, how to capitalize on it. Now for the fifth lesson, we were in Daytona, Florida at the Embry-Riddle pitch competition. They're an aeronautical school. They teach people how to fly planes, aerospace, everything that has to do with the sky, they focus on it. And Embry-Riddle taught me that no matter how good you are, sometimes you still won't get the output that you're looking for. But it also taught me that you never settle for what you want to go after. So we ended up being finalists in this one as well. And what was frustrating was I had brought individuals onto the team, absolutely did amazing jobs. They were from the University of Tampa because we needed Florida students to be able to compete in this competition. Taught them the entire pitch. We'd spend months working on it. I would Zoom every single day with them. They would kill the pitch. We practiced in Tampa. We didn't sleep for 3 days. We were eating Chick-fil-A bites for 3 days straight at campus. And we get to this pitch. They absolutely nail the pitch. Nothing wrong. The judges asked them questions. They answered every single question perfectly, and at the end, when we were talking to people, we didn't win the money. So this was the first one, I guess the second one, where we didn't win any money either. And that's just how it goes. But they had told us from a fundamental perspective, they wanted to see how strong the IP was. Is this patentable, what you're doing? Can you get some intellectual property around this? So as a result of that, I patented it. I spent $17,000 of my own money, which was pretty much all of the money plus some what we had earned that point. And we just got our PCT application, which is the full patent application, back last week, saying that we had novelty, we got granted for novelty, and the lesson taught me that when you say something, you have to back up and validate what you're saying to make sure that other people agree with it as well. Not necessarily agree with it, but they believe in the mission, because people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do. We solidified our why by answering their questions here. Now the next competition and the next lesson took us to Boston. It's called the Holt Prize, where there's not just competitions across the United States like all of these ones, this one's across the entire world. And we got picked as world semifinalists. They have 12 different summits across the entire world, and they pick 100 startups out of 10,000. So we drove from Tampa, Florida, all the way up to Boston because we were pitching down in Tampa and then went directly up to Boston for the exact same reason. Pitch competition. Now we got into Boston for the weekend. We go in and we meet people. We were one of the only schools that were from the United States. We had China, Mexico, Japan, literally everywhere that you could think of was a school. So it was a really cool experience to be able to meet people. But as a result, we didn't win any money because when we got there, not literally until we got there, we realized that they were looking for companies that were based around sustainability and solving the fast fashion epidemic. And we had nothing to do with any of that, so I don't understand how we got picked in the first place. But what this taught me was persistence closes the distance, because it just shows that we have the ingenuity, the gust, the gumption to be able to continuously keep working when we're not seeing the outcomes that we're looking for. We saw $5,000, we saw $0, we saw $0 again. This is easily when most people would quit. I think that back-to-back zeros, seeing most people quitting here, it would be easy for people to give up, to say they're done, to say the imposter syndrome is setting in, I'm done, I don't want to do this anymore. But this honestly just lit a fire in me to say that rejection just shows opportunity, because behind every closed door is a new opportunity. That's the mentality that we carried with us to the next competition and the next lesson. So the next one we did was called the Entre Pitch Competition. And we were finalists in this one as well. And the story behind how we became finalists is a rejection story that defies all odds in itself. So for this one, Entre is a social media app. They were running this to get more buzz generated around the app. And what's cool about this one is you had to be one of the top 5 most upvoted companies to be able to even be considered for it. And to be considered, to not even think about possibly being rejected, I would create an account upvoted, just to make sure that we were in the running to be able to even have the opportunity to pitch for this competition. And it ended up being that out of this competition, we ended up getting second place. So this one was a lot smaller competition, but we got $100 out of that. So far we've gotten $12,100, which in itself taught me a lesson. That it's pretty much the same one from the whole prize, is persistence closes the distance. And whatever you're trying to do, it can break you down, it can batter you, it can show you that you can really do anything that you put your mind to. As long as you're willing to go the distance to make it happen, then everything's possible. But I still think of this one as getting rejected, because I think that we had a better shot at winning $1,000 for first place that the individuals did that won. So this one still sits pretty heavy in the back of my mind, but if you dwell on the past, you're never going to be able to look towards the future. And for lesson 7, we were in Arizona at the ASU Innovation Open. And this was the biggest competition in the entire country, where they gave out $385,000. This one was very cool. We had spent a ton of time prepping for this. My editing team and I worked tirelessly, making all the videos for the submission, getting ready for the pitch. My co-founder and I were prepping everything, getting ready to go. Any questions they had, we had a spreadsheet of 500 questions they would potentially ask and how we would answer everything. We would practice hours every single day. Get up at 5 a.m., we would go work out, we'd be driving just hours and hours to meet each other, because he's 2 hours away. I would drive 2 hours one weekend, he would drive 2 hours the next weekend, just to be able to prep for this competition. and we got no money from it. I spent $600 in flights, thousands of dollars in hotel fees. Just to get around and eat was another $1,000. And this one definitely taught me a lesson as well. The darkest hour is only 60 minutes, because right after this one, I ended up being upset with myself and upset with the position we were at, because I felt like we deserved more than what we had gotten. So I ended up running a half marathon that day, just to show myself that, again, the darkest hour is only 60 minutes. And you learn from your mistakes, you prep for the future, you make sure not to do it again. And when I talked to people, they had said that they were super excited for us to come in. They wanted to see the company, they wanted to see everything that we were building, and they were so excited. But when they saw the product in person, they were upset that it wasn't farther along. And my response to that was, well, isn't the whole point of raising funding to be able to make the product better? But that's how it goes. There were people who were farther in the process along than we were at the time, so we ended up walking away with $0. But in the face of rejection, there's always lessons. And this one taught me that sometimes when you lose a battle, it teaches you a new way to win a war. And what I mean by that is we fine-tuned it for the final pitch competition that we had, and potentially the greatest outcome that we could have thought. And this one was called eFest. eFest is run by the founder of Best Buy. His name's Dick Schultz, and he's worth $4 billion. Every year at eFest, they give away $285,000 to student entrepreneurs who are making companies that are going to disrupt whatever industry they're in the world, is how they described it. And there were 3 different competitions in this. There was day 1, the pitch slam, day 2, the social innovation competition, and day 3 was the final large pitch. So for day 1, we had the pitch slam. It was a 90-second pitch where you had to talk about your venture in front of a room of 150 people, including the founder of Best Buy, who's sitting directly in front of you. And I remember being so nervous that I was up for 9 hours straight. I didn't leave my practice room at all, just practicing over and over. And every time I would mess up, I would do push-ups just to make sure that I wasn't messing it up. And it's safe to say that I had some pretty big arms after that. And as a result of the pitch slam, there were 25 of the top schools in the United States at this. And we were one of those. And we ended up getting second place out of 25, which meant we got $5,000 from day 1. And day 2 was a social innovation competition. We got paired up with kids from different schools across the United States, in a group of 4. And you had to come up with a problem, or come up with a solution to a problem around social innovation. So we got the problem, and this is right after ChatGPT came out. So our team came together. There was 4 of us from Loyola Marymount, USF, and then another school in California and me. I put together our entire business model on ChatGPT. We had an individual write up all the graphics. We had somebody else design the business model, and then we ended up pitching for an hour and a half on that too. We got second place out of 25, which means I got another $2,500 from this as well at day 2. So we're already at $7,500, and this is more combined from one pitch competition that we got from any of the other ones total. And then day 3 was the big pitch. This was the final one. This was where everybody would come together and you would do a 15-minute pitch in front of 200 people, including the founder of Best Buy. And this is where the nerves were the absolute highest. So for this, we gave a 15-minute pitch in 4 different rooms. And the top 5 teams, this is 5 rooms. And we did 5 rooms, and the top team from each room moved on to the finals. And the second place team from each room got $2,500. And after we gave our heart out, we had tons of questions from judges that were absolutely incredible. We answered everything to the fullest of our ability. They didn't have any follow-up questions. And the one judge was even like, the finals is later, right? And I was like, yeah. He's like, you guys might not want to book a flight. Like, he was insinuating that we were going to get into the finals. So from there, they do the finals. They call everything out. We got second place in our room, which means that we didn't move on to the finals. But from this one competition, $10,000, the last competition we did. And then I also ended up getting another $1,000 for winning a follow-up social media competition as well. So all the hard work and all the lessons that we learned, dealing with rejection, dealing with adversity, is you're really in charge of your own destiny and how far you want to take what you want to become. And this was the best lesson that I've ever learned in my entire life. This day 3 here, because I thought that we were ready to go. This was the one that we finally had to break out, and we were going to get everything we wanted. But at the end of it, you can't control adversity. But the one thing you can do is control your response to it and how you handle it. And that's exactly what we did, and now we continue to keep on doing that. And if you think that all these lessons that we went through and everything that we learned and the rejection we dealt with was crazy, you guys haven't seen anything yet. From this process we've gone through, I've learned that rejection creates calluses over time. The way you respond to it, the way you deal with it, it all changes the more that you learn and the more that you adapt to it. Because I would say in some cases now, I'm more attuned expecting rejection, so I can already kind of handle how I'm going to learn to move forward from that and how I'm going to fix whatever problem that we're in. So I wanted to get really personal and talk about the good and bad of the company currently after all these competitions and all this point we're at right now. And I think of these as opportunities, all the problems we're dealing with, because they're just solutions and steps. And that's what's cool about being an entrepreneur and doing your own thing, is because you get to deal with these problems every single day and problem solve to fix everything that you're going through. Which doesn't sound like it's a fun thing for some people, but that's why I get up every single day and continue to deal with the rejection that I'm facing every day. So we're at our last $2,000 in the company right now. And if we don't raise more funding, the company's gonna fold within the next 4 months. We have around $400,000 in soft investment right now, but we just need somebody to put in the first check, and the rest is like a domino effect that'll fall. And it's all about making the deal hot and making sure that you're able to get it to the next step. Just being able to make sure that you can survive another day and keep working, keep dealing with rejection, keep making sure that you're able to find that why every single day. We ran into what we thought was a major engineering problem, and we thought the company was dead right there. And this was literally 2 weeks ago. And 2 days after that, we found a new solution to that problem that was way better than what we had in the very first place. So that goes back to the lesson I said earlier, that behind each closed door is a new opportunity. Because we never would have found that solution that was better if we didn't run into that problem in the first place. So sometimes rejection and problems are blessings in disguise. And we got a rejection from the patent office the first time for our patent, and it cost $17,000 to make. And the first counsel that we hired didn't do a good job. So we had to pretty much drop that counsel, pay extra money to hire a new counsel, transfer all the patent information to the second counsel. And that cost me $17,000 of my own money, because we'd already spent all the money from the pitch competitions on engineering costs. And we just got our application back that we got accepted for all these claims, but it's gonna cost an extra $14,000 just to be able to file in the countries we wanna file it in. And my response to this is we just got in contact with the crowdfunding company from Indiegogo, who's gonna help us through the entire process of raising our $1 million in our round. Also means we might have to dilute it all. So you get rejected from one thing, you figure out how to solve that problem. And in dealing with rejection, you have to think of everything you're appreciative for, everything you've built, and all the people that you surround yourself with that are lifting you up on a day-to-day basis. We have an amazing team that's developing some of the coolest tech in the entire world, and sometimes it's cool to sit back and think that, like, I have 19 people that work under me technically right now, but we all work together. We're a team, it's a collaborative effort, and I wouldn't be anywhere without all these amazing people. It's really cool to sit back and reflect on that in face of all this rejection, in face of all this adversity, I still was able to build and do this, and we're just getting started. So, and the way to end this off is the biggest lesson that I've carried throughout the entire portion of my life. And my soccer coach had said this, and I think it's the best advice I've ever gotten. And I said it at the end of eFest. You can't control adversity, you can't control rejection, but you can definitely control your response to it. Because life gets hard, people like to bring you down to make themselves feel better, and everybody has an opinion on something that they've never done. Another major learning point I've faced from 1,400 days of rejection is to not face rejection with disappointment, but optimism. Don't complain about it. Think about all the necessary steps you have to immediately take to solve that problem and face that rejection that you had head on. And from that, we can write our own story, because the best way to predict the future is to create it. I appreciate every single one of you watching this video. You guys are absolutely amazing, and I can't wait to catch you in the next one. Peace.